In today's complex business environment, leaders need not only to be prepared for the worst, but also to build their resilience. At The Human Factor, Corporate Integrity Matters' Sonja Stirnimann invites top executives, board members, and industry experts to reflect and talk about the realities of corporate integrity, risk, and ethical leadership. As an international governance authority, independent director, and entrepreneur, she understands the challenges leaders face. Integrity and ethical leadership are not just principles. They build resilience, enhance reputation, and create strategic competitive advantage for organizations and for individuals.
Today, I'm honored to welcome my colleague Marco Grueter. Marco Grueter is a Swiss entrepreneur, investor, and advisor with over 25 years of experience in private equity, venture capital, and executive leadership. He's built, scaled, and successfully exited multiple companies, always prioritizing sustainable growth and human-centered leadership. As an investor, he's been on both sides of the boardroom table, supporting founders and guiding them through critical decisions. Today, Marco partners with ambitious business owners to scale their companies without compromising their freedom, values, or well-being. His philosophy is straightforward. True success is measured by the integrity, time, and joy you maintain as you grow. Marco, as already discussed in the pre-discussion we had, we both know that integrity is something we don't find on the strategy map of your and any business owners. It's often forged in quiet, high-stakes moments. So let's explore where it has shown up in your own leadership as an entrepreneur, but also as an advisor, because you have more than 25 years of experience as a risk manager, as an advisor, as an entrepreneur. So I'm really looking forward to hear your experience, but we also dig a little bit deeper because I would like to know when you and your own integrity was at risk.
Yes, thanks for having me, Sonja. Happy to dive into these topics. And maybe first, I think one thing that comes up is when I was a crisis manager, I've seen really what happens when integrity erodes. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that happens through thousands of micro compromises that an organization takes or does not challenge anymore. I think I've seen this in one of my roles myself, how a huge corporate at the end diminishes.
May I ask you how you felt? Because I think it is, and I know that it is also from my clients, it is so difficult. If you are responsible as a risk manager, you have a different DNA than maybe others in the organizations, and you see what happens often as the first one. You maybe also raise your voice and maybe you are also unheard. Would you like to go into these details? I know it's a little bit early in our discussion already, but you brought it up, so it would be nice.
Sure, absolutely. I think the first point is always for me, was always to understand that no one really talks about it, and I have to in my role, which is always that kind of moment when I told myself, okay, now I need to make it transparent. I'm the messenger, without pinpointing people. That put me in a situation or in a position where I took then the challenge from the board or from the executive committee. Personally, I felt okay with it because it was my role, but I felt pressured or not so comfortable when I saw that people had not reported things or they'd fear the consequences, or systems were not designed to actually transport that important message. It was everything hidden behind KPIs, dashboards. So I felt strong because it was my role, but I had to often take then the pressure, right? And that was obviously not comfortable. And yeah.
Where did you get the support from in your role? Or did you get any support?
Yes, I think it depends a bit on the different positions I had. the best was certainly to get the support from the board at the end, so from the head of the audit, risk and audit committee. That was, let's say, my mission to operate or license to operate. Others I had always executive, one in the executive committee that was backing myself. But I also had a situation when I realized that this backing goes away, right? So then the role itself is just not powerful anymore. And I think then it becomes a really personal decision if you want to stay in that role or if you just need to move on.
I know you a little bit also from past projects, so I assume that you are the one who sooner or later takes the consequences, isn't it? Yeah. Is that also a reason why you switched out of your corporate role and became an entrepreneur a few years ago?
Probably yes, because I do want to work with my values, really being present in what I do, and also would like to be surrounded by people that share these basic similar values. Probably yes, but also because I'm just entrepreneurial, and so I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and when I see something, I want to change it, and in bigger corporates, it's not that easy.
Okay. You also mentioned that in one of the situations or one of the corporates you used to work before, your own integrity was tested.
Yes. It probably was tested a few times because I see myself as an entrepreneur also when I work in corporate, and as a risk manager, I very often talk about risk as being also an enabler, right? So helping companies actually grow maybe even faster because you have more transparency, and then this itself is a thin line, right? So how much is it risk management? How much is it enabling the business? And I've been pushed into a corner then of helping the business, but then when things have to be really made transparent, things that weren't good, like issues or risks, I was then pushed out of this corner into the guy that doesn't enable the company anymore. And that was pretty tough in terms of what are my values and how do I react to this situation. And I had to choose transparency and before growth.
What helped you to stick with your own values or not becoming somehow diluted? Because I think it's a huge topic because our own integrity is so important. And I believe that if we are not living with our own integrity, we can also not support a corporate integrity or a DNA of corporate integrity. What helped you to stick with your own integrity or maybe also refine your own integrity again?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it probably grew with age and experience on knowing what my integrity and my values are and how important it is for me to stick to it. As a younger one, I probably didn't realize it that much. I was also not in such positions, obviously. At the end, because I felt it even almost in my body, right? That I have difficulties to look in the mirror or to sleep or to talk about what I'm doing with others. And then that's a clear sign that I'm doing things that are against my values and my integrity principles. So I always wanted to be true to myself, and I had to learn that this is the most important thing, and it's not about the business case or it's not about others and their success. So it's really about myself, and if I'm in an environment that doesn't support that, I'm in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm. And now, since a few years, you also support business owners on their path and also making sure that they can stick with their own integrity. So, but how do you ensure that integrity stays visible when speed, scale, or also investor pressure intensifies? I think it's also a difficult, how should I say, path for business owners as such to stick with their own integrity, but also make sure that the business grows.
That definitely is. And then sometimes some business owners do take decisions that help them grow a little faster, but then maybe they have to build up again on the integrity side after this, because they realize it might not have been the best decision, not the best client, not the best partner, not the best way of delivering the service. How I work with entrepreneurs is I help them to basically future-proof their business, and integrity is one of the main drivers in all discussions, be it talking with investors that if they don't see, if they realize something later, they have not been provided with the transparency in the first step, they will lose their trust and they don't invest, or just be very bad investors, so to speak. Clients, it's about the same. If a client feels he's not being taken as fully as he wants in order to solve his problem, he would just walk away. And when I see companies that constantly grow and really become that future-proof enterprise or company, it is about being really clear with its values and trying to install this in all the different areas with all the different partners.
Can your clients, the entrepreneurs and business owners at that stage where they are in, already see that it is a competitive advantage? Because sometimes I also have the discussions that people say, for example, what is the return on investment when you have a high integrity? I truly believe we have a huge return on investment, but I also see that it's not that obvious for some of our market.
Yes, it is, and it's definitely not obvious, or it's also not the standard in a lot of companies or maybe markets even. But I can clearly see it from two sides. I can clearly see it as someone that also helps with investing or finding investors for companies, but also on the side of just supporting the entrepreneur as such to differentiate, to grow. A strong signal is from private equity and venture capital side. What I see, I mean, we talk about margins, market share, growth, and all these things, but more and more we talk about things like key person risk, about ethics, about ethical resilience, about strengths of governance. And these are drivers in valuation, right? So these are drivers where a business owner or a corporate gets a higher or a lower valuation, and therefore, let's say, a better investment opportunity or a less good opportunity for investors. That's definitely a huge change to what I have seen, like, say, 10 years ago.
Mhm. Absolutely. And what you, just from your experience, what do you see? How do they do that? How do investors really assess integrity or ethical leadership, resilience of these key players? Is there a systematic approach or is it just a gut feeling? What do you see in your environment?
Yeah, I think it's both. It's on one thing, facts you can just look at. For instance, does the company has a key person risk? Is there someone in the middle that steers everything and doesn't share everything? You can figure this out pretty easy. You can also see if governance is in place and lived by just also being in these bodies and as how you say, an observer. On the other side, you need to talk with people, and you need to talk on different levels, top level, middle management, but also people in the front and in operations to understand whether they have a similar understanding of values and what is integrity, what means integrity in their business. So I think it's both things. There's clear assessment possibilities, but there's also experience needed to talk with these people to figure out, is it really only on paper, or does the company really survive without compromising its soul at the end?
When I hear you, I know your background. I know you used to be a risk manager. You have a high level of integrity. But what do you see? What's a governance risk you believe that these kind of observers or investors are still underestimating, despite recent scandals or crises? Because you are sensitized to all these topics, but what I experienced, there are also other investors, maybe less aware of what could go wrong and what kind of governance risk they have with their investments when it comes to ethical leadership and integrity. What do you observe? What could they do better?
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, a lot of things, and it's also not, let's say, a short answer to this. I think one thing, I don't know how to put it, but one thing is, I've seen companies with great performance metric dashboards and stuff, but when it comes to what actually happens, let's say, how fast does the truth travel through the company? And then it's very often it's not fast enough. So I think, how does the company make sure truth travels faster than the performance metrics? So whenever something is not good, not in line with the values, senior management needs to know as soon as possible, or even immediately.
Mhm.
So that needs to travel faster than reports. And if that's a cultural thing, if that's installed and works, and that can be even by whistleblower mechanics processes, or some anonymous early warning systems, or however then it's implemented. If that happens, if that's installed, I think it's a really high level on integrity on how it supports the company. If it's not there, and that's very often not there, and that's what a lot of investors are missing, and probably also board members, they're missing really what's the truth, because they're just behind their nice dashboards.
Do you think, or what do you see? Do they ask for it or not? Because I see investors and investors. Some are really aware and sensitized what could go wrong, and they also ask for these kind of, for example, whistleblowing opportunities. They also have a good understanding of how they could assess key players when they have the interviews with them. Others are not yet there. And I think it's a pity, because they invest a lot of money. They trust on dashboards and figures more than on, how should I say, it's empathy, or also the intuition they have. And they really they don't see the points they should ask, and they don't ask the right questions. That's what I see. And I think it's too bad, and it would be great if they could minimize their risk by asking the right questions.
Yes. And I think the bigger the investor is, the less they do it. Right. And I've seen that. And yeah, because this investment is just one of many. And they are almost like an industrialized investment process, right? So they just look at the same figures through hundreds of companies and decide where to buy, where to sell, where to keep. And as long as that process is given, they are happy. And they don't have the capacity, and even not the entrepreneurial understanding, to go into these invested companies and actually talk about what really drives the future, or makes them future proof and whatnot.
But honestly, I think also, if you have a standardized process, integrity, that's just my opinion, integrity should be a part of it, because it's a competitive advantage. It reduces your risk. It also makes sure that your reputation is not going to be diluted or even destroyed. So why are these kind of questions not yet part of a standardized process of huge investors?
Good question. But I must say, there is more and more coming in, right? As the example I gave before in private equity, but it's still not probably as good as it should. And I clearly see a difference between public companies and private companies. Right? So that's different. Definitely a difference. I see it coming in the private market more. I can't say why it's not in the public market. I don't know, it's probably just too complex, right? It's too many investors.
It's also too soft, maybe, isn't it? We have too many soft factors, and aren't we somehow also socialized that we should rather look to the hard facts to make it comparable somehow and also document it instead of really asking the right soft questions?
Absolutely. And that's certainly a big driver. Not a lot of managers can probably handle soft factors as well. I agree. And it's also not what you learn in the business schools, right?
So, Marco, I think we should really have another discussion thinking about how could we support these kind of investors, because at the end, it's the money from others they spend to companies, and they are responsible that they ask the right questions. So if you are open, I would like to invite you again and maybe also have a special deep dive with a webinar or also some kind of conference we could organize, because I think it's also interesting for our audience, virtually or also in an offsite. But just one last question. Where do you see does the trend go right now? When you think about your investors, your business owners, because you have different roles. So what can we expect in the near future when it comes to integrity and also investing money?
Yeah, so I think really this whole topic is shifting from being a compliance topic and becomes more a core business strategy. I think I see these signs and signals more in the private market for now, but I think also coming into public market, there's definitely examples there. And I see probably really, let's say, probably three topics. One is really this transparency as an expectation, not a differentiator. So if you don't have it in the future and integrity is not in your KPI, then you're already lost, right? Because this is just becoming the minimum bar. Then the other one is, as I said before, I think it's the integrity as the evaluation driver, be a better valued company. And then the other, another very interesting point we didn't even talk about is, I think, when it comes to AI and digital ethics, right?
Well, yeah, that's another topic. Yeah,
this is the huge driver now, right? But it will force integrity to grow up, right? Because if you don't have integrity installed already, and then talk about all these digital and AI opportunities, everything becomes worse and not in your hands anymore, right? So that's a huge risk, right? So, but that's, I think, the three things I see really much where integrity is becoming a standard or needs to become a standard. Otherwise, this will blow up.
It's going to scale the bad things in a company. It's the bad culture which is going to be scaled and not the good one, and that's exactly the basis and foundations they should have in place before they start with it.
Yes. And if you don't have this value-based judgment using AI, you're completely lost.
Well, I think we could also talk another hour about that. So,
Absolutely.
Marco, thank you very much for your valuable insights and reflections today. And you also outlined a very important part of your role and supporting business owners really understanding what are the value drivers they have, also making integrity one of the core business or strategic pillars they have, and also take care of themselves by knowing what kind of integrity standards they have. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Sonja, and also for you, wish you all the best.
This was another episode of the Human Factor Corporate Integrity Matters, where we uncover the leadership strategies, fostering governance, risk awareness, resilience, and strategic foresight. Today with one of my highly appreciated colleagues, Marco Grueter. Guided by the principle, corporate integrity and resilience are foundations of trust and long-term success in unpredictable times. Thank you for listening, and now take care and nurture your own resilience too.